Okay, today we are going to add option 2 for graphing. So we added option 1 last trimester, and we said we could graph in standard form if something was in the form ax plus by equals c by finding the x and y intercepts, right? Plugging in that 0, finding the x and y intercepts, plotting those, and getting our line. Okay, the problem is that standard form isn't perfect. Okay, so I'm writing this down on the side of the board. You do not need to write this down. We already have standard form notes. You'll want to write down the stuff I write on my Promethean board, okay? So let's say we were given 7x plus 3y equals 12. And we wanted to graph this in standard form. Okay, this is in standard form, correct? And so we could find the x-intercept by plugging in a value of 0 for y, which means this goes away. And what does our x-intercept become? Yeah, 12 over 7. How do we feel about graphing an x-intercept of 12 over 7? Ugh, I see some heads shaking no. Why don't we want to graph an x-intercept of 12 over 7? Where is 12 over 7? Okay, so 1 and, right, if we change it into a mixed number, 1 and 5/7. Why is my marker squeaky? I mean, the best we can do is guess where that's at, right? Guessing a half is tricky enough. Do we want to guess 5/7? And if we're approximating 5/7, are we really graphing it perfectly? No, right? We're just kind of close. So standard form is great. It's simple when the numbers all work out nice and pretty. It is not great and simple when the numbers end up being a hot mess. Okay, so we need some other forms that we can graph it. So option number 2 that we are going to introduce today is slope-intercept form. And this is it. This is the beloved formula you've all been waiting to use. Do we know what slope-intercept formula is?
Is y2 minus y1?
No, that's slope formula. It's the one you all want to say all the time. When I say slope, what comes to your mind?
Rise over.
Oh, now because you now learn slope, now you're all fine with it. Y equals mx plus b? I feel like this is the formula my students come from middle school, that anytime I say what formula, y equals mx plus b. I'm like, no, not yet, not yet. Y equals mx plus b. Today is the beloved formulas day. It's its chance. Okay, slope-intercept formula is in the form y equals mx plus b. So standard form is ax plus by equals c. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Good news, we already know what m stands for. What is m? Slope. B represents our y-intercept. Okay, so mathematicians aren't exactly the most creative people ever. So this formula is called slope-intercept form. And what 2 things can we find from it? Slope and a y-intercept. Literally the 2 things you get from it are in the name. I blame boys for that too, right? Girls didn't get to do math when these things were being invented. It's boys' fault. Not really, that's just what I say all the time. Okay, so there are 2 things we can find in this form as well. It is the slope and it is the y-intercept. Good news about slope-intercept form is that it requires 0 work to find the slope and the y-intercept when we're in the right format. No dividing, no plugging in 0, none of that. So if I say y equals 3x minus 4. This is y equals mx plus b format. So what does our slope equal? What does our m equal?
3.
3. What does our b or our y-intercept equal?
-4.
-4. Lizzie, can you take those off for me? We're taking notes. Thank you. I mean, that's like, there's no trick there. That is m and b. Okay, if I say y equals 1/2 x, y equals 1/2 x, just leave it at that. What does m equal?
1/2.
What does b equal? 0. Because what number is being added here that we don't see? 0, right? This really could say +0 and not change the problem. And so our m would be 1/2 and our b would be 0. A problem could try and be sneaky, and it could have it flip-flopped. What does m equal on this one?
4.
1. Why is it 1 and not 4? Margie, what do you think?
Is it because it's always next to x?
Correct, right? So if we say y equals mx plus b form, it's not that the first number is the slope, it's that it's the number being multiplied with x, right? So if we look at this problem, can I change the order of addition? Yes, and I could rewrite this into y equals x plus 4. Okay, so we can't do what's first because we could do some rewriting. We need to take the coefficient. The coefficient is the word for the number in front of the variable. So we need to take the coefficient of x. And if we don't see a number in front of x, it's a 1. So our slope is 1. What's our y-intercept then equal? 4. So far, so good? Y equals 5. What do we think about this one? What do we think the slope is?
0.
0. Why do we think 0? Jaden, why did you say 0?
Because there's no x value.
There's no x's. How many x's do we see up here?
0.
0 of them. So our slope is 0. And, ooh, what's our y-intercept going to be?
5.
5. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Where do we feel about that? We're good? We're somewhere in this range from here to here? Okay. So that's the easy part. The easier part is finding our slope and our y-intercept. Now in standard form, right, we had to do a tiny bit more work to find the x and y-intercept, and then really no work to graph it. We just had to know how to plot an intercept. Okay, slope-intercept form is kind of reverse. We don't have to do any work to find the slope and the y-intercept. We have to do a little bit more work to get it graphed. Okay, so if we want to graph in slope-intercept form, so let's say we want to graph y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Now, like many things we do in this class, I'm going to give you some steps. Okay, I'm writing down the steps because I think sometimes it helps us process and break it down into smaller chunks. Please understand, it's not like you have to think every step along the way in the long run. Hopefully you'll do this enough times that you're like, oh, I can just graph this and I know what I'm doing. Okay, these aren't like required or forced in a super specific order type of thing. Okay, so first step that I'm going to give you is we want to find M and B. So that's what we were just practicing. Okay, so what does M equal in this equation up here? M equals 2/3. And what does B equal? B equals 1. Stop me at any point if you're like, holy cow, Mrs. McKinney, I don't know what you're talking about. Slow down. Step 2. We want to make sure to write the slope as a fraction. Sometimes we're in luck and it's already given to us as a fraction. So in this situation, the slope is 2/3. That's already a fraction. Okay, but if slope was given to us as 5, how would we write 5 as a fraction? Abby? Is it Abby? What would you write, Abby? 5 over 1, because we would need a rise over a run. Okay, so we want to make sure slope is a fraction. Here we're already taken care of. Step 3, we are going to plot B. Now, B is our y-intercept. Okay, so if it's our y-intercept, how do we plot a y-intercept? Sherry, what did we say? Because this is our y-axis, so we want it to cross the y-axis at 1. So make sure you are plotting on your y-intercept. That is the biggest mistake students make with this one. Okay, they accidentally plotted as an x, so it has to be the y-intercept. Okay, here's where the math world isn't very friendly to us. I don't have a reason, it just is. Right, when we plot an ordered pair, we plot it as x, comma, y. But slope is rise over run. It's the exact opposite. So you're going to have to make sure you keep the two separate in your brain. Because step 3, after we have just plotted a point, we are going to count, bless you, from that point we made, from B, our rise over our run. So we kind of want to go backwards order of how we find slope from 2 points. Now we don't know what the other point is, but the directions are given to us. Okay, so we want to rise 2. So from the point we made, we are going to rise 2. And then how many do we want to run? 3. So we are going to run 3. Now, 2 points are always enough to make a line. Make 3 points. Because if you accidentally count wrong, you won't be able to catch yourself. Because any 2 points make a line. Okay, so if you count again, A is a really good habit for later this trimester. But B, it will let you notice if you counted wrong. So from this point, count again. Up 2 over 3. That's sort of just like a, let me double check myself and make sure I didn't count wrong type of thing. And so here is our line. Questions on where that came from?